Yo, YouTube, investigating Israel's terrorism in the West Bank. That's kind of wild.
Once you become aware of what Israel does in the world, it becomes very hard to understand them. Bombing cities to rubble, forced mass expulsions, false flag operations, riots defending grape culture, and extreme systematic oppression. You see, there are many notable areas of Israeli brutality we could cover, but today we are going to focus on the daily terror happening in the Palestinian West Bank. Right now, over 700,000 illegal Israeli settlers are currently taking over internationally recognized Palestinian land, and these settlers are backed by the Israeli military, armed by American guns, and funded in part by Zionist Christian church donations. Folks, this episode is brutal. We are covering mob violence, arson, farmers being attacked, animals being tortured for fun, and we even interview an American dad whose son was beaten to death by Israeli settlers. To uncover the truth, we sat down with those that have seen and lived this firsthand. You are going to hear from former U.S. Marines, Palestinian Americans, an IDF soldier, and even a Jewish survivor of Nazi occupation who now speaks out against Israel. Folks, we have the raw footage to back up everything I'm about to tell you. However, we have to edit it carefully as most of it is too horrific to be allowed on YouTube. Folks, a quick disclaimer. I love my life, I love my family, and I am in perfect health. Another thing to address is we know this video is going to be shadow banned hard. So I'm asking you, the viewer, to help me fight against the algorithm. Hit the like button, write a comment, and imagine every single one of these actions as a salute against this Israeli behavior. Let's dive into the video. Folks, I'm about to go ask some people that have had boots on the ground experiences in the West Bank. But to prepare for these interviews, I'm going to use a partner of the channel, the sponsorship of today's episode, Straight Arrow News. I've relied on them in the past to be better informed, and so I'm going to look up the information happening in this world. So now that I have my research, let's head into these interviews and see what's going on.
My name is Kamel. I'm a U.S. American citizen. My son Saif, who was also an American citizen, was beaten to death by Israeli settlers.
I want people to get an idea of what life is like in Palestine and in your village in Sinjar where this all happened.
You get up in the morning, you gotta find out where's the checkpoints that day. This is how it is, Tommy. They can put a barrier anytime that they want. Looks like they're closing the road here because they have a gate in front of this village of Turmus Aya, and anytime they want to close it, they close it. Last night, they had this new road that we made between my village and a neighboring village. They were happy about this road, man. It's all new asphalt put on this road. The Israeli authority came, just demolished the whole road.
With a bulldozer.
With the bulldozer.
Wow.
Just because, basically. They just want to make life as hard as they can on the Palestinians.
In an area, we could say about the size of Delaware, that this land is, that they have 702 checkpoints set up.
And only growing.
My name is Mohammed Daoud. I'm a Marine Corps veteran. I'm a security provider, and I'm the co-founder of PalShield. My name is Bilal Daoud. I'm a cybersecurity specialist, and I'm a co-founder of PalShield, where we track settler violence and protect Palestinian communities.
The topic of the story is life under Israeli occupation. Do you think that's a fair title?
Perfect title for what we're all dealing with in the West Bank.
And what makes it life under occupation?
Everything from as simple as wanting to get to school, say building a well, and water scarcity, it's the Middle East, so the water under your feet is regulated and watched by the Israeli authorities.
I'll tell you how many stories we know on a personal level of women like giving birth on a checkpoint because they wouldn't clear them to go to the hospital. I mean, it's just crazy.
What do you think the Israeli goal is in all of this?
Displacement, land theft. In the context of Palestine today, they want it all without the Palestinians. So they want the land without the people.
They are extremely calculated, and they know how to slowly push people out.
My name is Clyde. I'm a United States Marine Corps veteran, Christian, who visited Palestine to expose the truth of what's going on, and I'm here to expose the truth of Christian Zionism in America. As soon as you drive in, it is clear as day. Like I said, you can see the difference between the Palestinian village, and it would have barbed wire fences around it. They would cordon them off and literally block them in. So like a village would be its own little camp, its own like kind of concentration camp. And at times the Israeli military will go in and they'll lock those gates up so that the Palestinians literally can't leave their village. Once they get out of their little village, if the gates open, they leave. I used to think it was 700, but I just confirmed it's over 900 checkpoints within the West Bank. And the West Bank is a tiny plot of land. The whole of the Holy Land is like the size of New Jersey. The West Bank is a tiny little chunk of that. Research can only paint so much of a picture. When you go there, it's completely different. You see it firsthand, you feel it firsthand, and how it actually literally is an open air prison.
Folks, to understand the modern settler movement, let me take you back to
Damn, coach.
1968. Meet Rabbi Moshe Levinger. For him, evicting hundreds of thousands of Palestinians to build the land of Israel was not enough. He wanted more land. So he organized a militant following that had one clear mission: cross over the border and take the West Bank. So he brought his radical crew to the city of Hebron and went to an Arab innkeeper and said they would be spending one night to celebrate a peaceful Passover tradition. But in typical Israeli fashion, he lied. In fact, his crew woke up the next morning and declared that this inn was theirs and that the hotel owner needed to leave. And at this point, they were surrounded by the Palestinians that actually lived there, and Rabbi Levinger put the Israeli government in a pickle. They could decide to drag Levinger's crew out by force, or they could send in the military to protect them. And afraid of the terrible optics of evicting illegal squatters, the Israeli government sent in the military. And folks, this is the same playbook that you see in use today. Israeli settlers will lie, cheat, and take by force land that is not theirs, play the victims, and then call in the IDF to protect them.
You are stealing my house.
And if I don't steal it, someone else is gonna steal it.
And to be clear, to everyone except
What the
for
fuck?
Israelis and Zionists, this is known as breaking international law. This land is not theirs.
And there are currently 144 settlements in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, all illegal under international law.
But just look at how Israeli far-right leader Ben Gvir feels about the way that they take over land.
לא, אני מרים את החוק מהרצפה. אני מרים את החוק אני הורס למי שבונה שלא כחוק.
This guy is actually broadcasting the Israeli plan to the world. It's an equation that involves supremacy, forced evictions, and the military bulldozing the generational homes of the Palestinians. And folks, in a way, we are the ones enabling it, because right now, both our tax dollars and our American weapons are being used to do this by our so-called greatest ally.
And so in the West Bank, it's total occupation. I'm sure you've heard of the Area A, B,
Bruh.
and C.
By splitting these areas into areas A, B, and C, they established different rules for these different areas. So areas A, you didn't have any Israeli authorities in there. You had the Palestinian Authority. Areas B, where we live, is under Palestinian civil administration. So, for example, we have a village council, but in terms of
Security control, that's all under Israel. Even though Area A is technically supposed to be under full PA authority, we know, well, it's not, because these areas get raided all the time by the Israeli Defense Forces.
The ones who live in the PA have their own area I can't go in. They can come into the joint area.
So Area A, there's no IDF, there's no settlers.
There is IDF operations targeting terrorists, and that's in and out, but not a presence. You want to have IDF presence in those areas.
The IDF's purpose in the West Bank, not only as an occupation force, but is solely to protect the settlers that are living there. Since the 60s, 70s, the settlers have become more militarized, and you have a good solid, I don't want to exaggerate, between 50 to 100,000 armed men, right? Settlers, these guys are like, many of them are probably IDF reservists as well. So you have a clash. I mean, it's not a conflict of interest, because it is the same goal. We see the settlers in the army as one and the same.
The Hilltop youth, are they employed? Like, how do they have the time to just stand around all day to wait for a Palestinian vehicle?
They're paid. There's also, they like to swap them out like every few months too, to kind of get some new blood.
Shit, no, sir.
Stop her! Stop her! Stop her! Stop her!
Let's dive deeper into the Hilltop Youth.
They're
They are
crazy.
largely made up of Israeli high school dropouts, and many are known to have learning disabilities and behavioral disorders. These guys believe the West Bank is their divine right promised to them by God, and they follow radical leaders like Mayor Ettinger, guys who extremist networks are tied to horrific crimes like firebombing a Palestinian couple and their 18-month-old baby to death. And guys, sheep are the secret weapon of the Hilltop Youth. You see, they bring their sheep to graze on Palestinian land, and then they violently attack any Palestinian that comes near them, and thus begins the takeover of the land. And this approach works. Since October 7th, settlers have permanently expelled 76 different Palestinian communities. And it's so out of control that even the head of Israel's own intelligence agency, the Shin Bet, has publicly condemned their actions as, quote, Jewish terrorism. They said it, not me. And folks, despite
not
this,
me.
the Israeli military continues to help them with their crimes.
I know that the settlers have little like militia groups, so it's a joint effort from the Israeli military, the Israeli police, and the settlers. So when settlers go in and they harass the Palestinians, the military is not going to come in and intervene and stop the settlers from killing or damaging property. They're going to enable it. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you saw that video of that settler who beat the woman over with a stick.
You got it. Oh, come on, don't hit her! Hey! Oh my God. Hey! Hey! Hey!
She was just harvesting olives, bro.
During the olive harvest, for many Palestinian families, is like one of their main sources of income throughout the entire year. And so the first thing that Israeli settlers will do is they'll attack those crops. They'll burn those trees down. They'll attack livestock. They will drive their ATVs in grazing areas and run over livestock. They'll force a family away from while they're harvesting their olives, and then steal the bags that are already been filled. I mean, it doesn't stop with them. Anything you can imagine they do, they do.
Is it encoded into the psychology of an Israeli to hate the Palestinians?
Yeah, it's ingrained in their society from birth.
ממוקמת שמאל או ימין?
אמצע.
צפון בין.
חוק אותם?
שתי מדינות לשני עמים.
פצצת אטום, כדי שנחיה.
אפשר לחיות עם ערביי ישראל?
ערבי טוב זה ערבי.
They're so brainwashed that they believe stealing Palestinian land is the right thing to do.
For those that think it's ridiculous to label Israel as an apartheid state, don't take it from me. Take it from the words of a man that literally invented the system of apartheid in South Africa, their Prime Minister, Hendrik Verwoerd.
Our policy is one which is called by an Afrikaans word, apartheid.
When asked about Israel, he bluntly stated, Israel, like South Africa, is an apartheid state. And that's from the OG of apartheid. Folks, we're talking about miles of fences, segregated road systems, and military force being used to bulldoze and kick people off their own land. I mean, it even goes as far as people are getting the shit kicked out of them for praying or for trying to attend a funeral of one of their friends or family members that was killed by the Israelis. This is simply how life is in the West Bank.
My name is Ido Amiaz, aka The Saluki. My mission is to continue the work that I'm doing, my journalism in the occupied West Bank, and to demonstrate life under occupation. I've sacrificed quite a bit. In fact, I was taken by Israel and I was held in a mental institution for 17 days. They made a claim that because I'm going around the West Bank, this was at the very beginning of the genocide after October 7th, that I'm out of my mind and that I'm a risk to myself. If you're a risk to yourself or a risk to others, then you may be hospitalized, according to Israel. So I was held in a mental hospital, and the only way I got out of there is by dropping about $10,000 on lawyers.
Folks, we are told by our government and mainstream media that one of the reasons we have to support this behavior is because Israel is the only remaining bastion of democracy in the Middle East.
The UN was obsessively hostile towards Israel, the one true democracy in the Middle East.
But let me ask you this. Do you think it's democratic to have the reputation of killing more journalists in this conflict than ever before in history? And ask the Israeli citizens, are you not being censored from publishing videos of missile strikes in your own city? And finally, let's talk about the press, both foreign and Israeli. It is well known that they have to submit their stories to the IDF censor department to get approved, and that this department has the power to kill any story that they don't want coming out. This is the democracy that we're fighting for?
One of the worst things I've heard or seen, a dear friend of mine, Auda Haslin, he was shot by an Israeli settler. What was his crime? The Israeli settlers brought equipment to tear down houses and olive trees within his village, and him and some of the Palestinians, I'm not sure if even he did, threw rocks at them in retaliation, and he caught a bullet. Guess what happened to the Israeli settler? Nothing. He was 3 days in house arrest, and now he's walking free. Yinon Levi, his name is. This sense of entitlement and superiority is prevalent in the average Israeli. Obviously, if you go somewhere like Tel Aviv or Haifa, where people are more chill, then they wouldn't have a problem with Palestinians, and they might believe in a two-state solution. But at the end of the day, the majority of Israel is not Tel Aviv and Haifa, where people are more open-minded and left-leaning. The majority of Israel are cities like Ashdod, like Nahariya, where I was born, where people do think that they're simply better than other people.
What are some examples of the things that Israeli settlers are doing to people right now?
We could start with, burning the land, burning crops, burning homes, throwing rocks at vehicles, sometimes fire bombs, sometimes shooting at these vehicles. You might have a Palestinian ambulance, and they'll literally pull up in front of the ambulance and slow down. These are just basic Israeli settler civilians, hoping that the person injured or whatnot would essentially die off. It's a loathing and a hatred that I don't think I've seen really in any other version of, like, any other conflict. There's a sense of entitlement to these settlers. They really seriously believe that the land that we are under, that we've been around, that we've been on, that we've lived in, that our heritage is built around, is theirs by God.
They were given basically M16s to anyone that wanted to go get.
Where do those M16s come from?
USA.
Yep, you heard that right. We are sending American guns to Israel, and they are getting handed out by guys like Ben-Gvir to Israeli settlers that then in turn use them to attack Palestinians, some of which are Palestinian Americans. And it got so bad that in 2023, the Biden administration halted the sale of rifles to Israel because of all these settler attacks. Yes, our greatest ally is using our own guns to attack Americans and innocent Palestinians. How wonderful. For those not familiar, Ben-Gvir is a far-right Israeli politician known for his bloodlust and eradicating Palestinians. He's the type of guy that enjoys wearing noose pendants on his shirt for fun. And here he is celebrating the recent law that legalized the death penalty for Palestinians. And this has widely been criticized as a racist apartheid law. As long as Ben-Gvir remains alive, he will be a guy that advocates for the ethnic cleansing of Palestinians entirely.
So the American taxpayer money is going to Palestine, to Israel, using it to kill Americans. Remember, our village is 80% American.
So me and you are both two American entrepreneurs who've paid a lot in taxes. What does it make you think when your hard-earned tax money is going to the death of your sons?
It kills you knowing that your own money funded people that directly had something to do with the murder of your own son.
Dude, oh man, I could, you want to talk about the foreign aid, or you want to talk about the shadow money that gets funneled through shadow nonprofits, which is multitudes of more money? Man, so like I could just talk about the Central Fund of Israel as an example. I think 98% of all funding that went towards a settlement expansion project went through this specific 501c3. They are 501c3.
You can get a tax rebate for this. Like, the U.S. is really just a big fat cow for them to just suck dry.
Use and abuse.
Israel would not be able to do what it does. It would not be able to have the control that it has and function as a state without the free money that we're giving them every year.
Talk about the 1960s. The Israeli settlers, they moved in, they took over land, they took over people's homes, and still to this day, you have on camera Israeli settlers marching into Palestinian homes, sitting down, going into the fridge and saying, "This is my house now."
What you don't know is that that's what Arabs do to them all the time.
Do you have video clips of that?
I can get you video clips of that, of course. I don't document it, but I know people who do.
I mean, unlawfully, we had Rabbi Levinger cross into Hebron and then go into an inn, tell the innkeeper he's a Swiss tourist, and then all of a sudden wake up and say he's not leaving. And that was the beginning of the settlements. How is that not clear theft?
In Hebron?
Mm-hmm.
So that's like literally the worst example you're giving, by the way, because Hebron is one of the smallest Jewish communities.
There's no incident ever in the history of Palestine where a Palestinian is just attacking an Israeli anywhere in the West Bank. Like, because to your point earlier, they shouldn't be there in the first place.
Tell me how the Israeli settlers violate international law.
The fact that they're there in the first place is a violation of international law.
There's no pressure by the international community to hold Israel accountable for anything. Israel has us by the throat, and we can't and we won't hold them accountable. And if anybody else, if any of the other Arab nations try to do anything to Israel, we'll sanction them, we'll remove their funding, we might attack them.
By international law, is it legal for these settlers to be in the West Bank?
100% yes, with the caveat that it is disputed.
Because in 1967, Israeli Prime Minister actually was against the settlements because he said it directly violates the Geneva Convention and international law.
In order to answer that question, you actually have to go to what is actual international law that is binding.
The Israelis control all of their resources there, the water, the electricity. For 1 day per week, they get running water. The other 6 days of the week, they have to live off of water tanks. You would see empty water tanks on the side of the building, but they had bullet holes in them. They would drive by and shoot up the water tanks so that they don't have water the rest of the week.
Here, even the water is controlled. Israel's national water company, Mekarat, holds a complete monopoly over the West Bank's water supply. Because Palestinians are forbidden from drilling deep wells and require Israeli permits to dig on their own land, they have to buy their water back directly from Mekarat or rely on bringing in expensive water trucks. Now, Palestinians are only given water every 7 to 10 days, so their roofs are covered in black tanks to hold water in case the supply is cut off completely. But if you look nearby at the illegal Israeli settlements, they are plugged into the same Mekarat grid, and they are given 24/7 access to that water to do anything from fill swimming pools to water their lawns in the desert. Folks, make no mistake, this water monopoly is just another weapon in this apartheid system. But are you familiar with the water company Mekarat?
Mekorot, yeah.
Palestinians' own water supply, it appears that the Israeli settlers receive 82% of the Palestinian water, and that furthermore in the summer, the Palestinians are they have a certain well distance they're prevented to digging from where the settlers are not restricted in that same manner, and that the Palestinians in their own land are restricted to water where the settlers are not.
I'm trying to take this seriously because this is literally the biggest sham that I've seen that goes out to people around the world. The nation of Israel, right? The country of Israel, it pipe and pump water into the Palestinian PA-controlled area in the West Bank and in Gaza with zero compensation from the Palestinians that use that water. Every year comes to the Israeli Knesset and they dispute the money or the debt that has been incurred because of the usage of all the water and the electricity. So both the electric company, which there's only one electric company in Israel, we provide free water, free electricity to the PA, and every year these companies bring the debt to the Knesset and say, this is the outstanding debt from years past, and the government basically says, tough crap, and you know what they do to compensate? They charge me more on my electricity and on my water.
Sometimes I just wonder, like, what would a true red-blooded conservative American that really does believe in the same values that we believe, right? Like, you know, liberty, justice, freedom, defending yourself, right? Self-defense,
dignity, honor, just basic things.
It makes me wonder, like, what would they do if they were under the same circumstances, you know? Like, it's wild.
I'll tell you what they'll do. We did a lot for a lot less.
For tea.
We literally,
down the country for tea.
you know what I'm saying? Like, that's the difference, right?
Is resisting anti-Semitic?
Personally, I don't think so.
Why are these older Christians so captured and invested in Israel?
We need to talk about John Darby and his creation of the theological ideology of dispensationalism, which is the idea that God has two different groups of chosen people. He has the Christians, the church, and then he has the Jews. And so that's where Christian Zionism comes from, is from Darby.
Let's break down the mechanics of how Christians are actually funding this brutality you are witnessing. You see, Israel developed a brilliant plan. They do not have to convince the entire American public to participate in the settler movement. They just have to influence how our pastors think. What they do is fly thousands of pastors out to all expenses paid trips to Israel. And when they get their message across, these pastors return to the United States, where they proceed to funnel hundreds of millions of dollars annually into the settler movement. And the reason pastors do this is they believe that Jewish settlement of these areas is necessary to bring about the second coming of Christ. So essentially, to fulfill this prophecy, they are willing to enable the persecution and suffering of thousands along the way. It's actually insane to read about Jesus in the Bible helping the sick and the broken, and then to look up and see these American churches funding a movement that does not seem to respect Christians or even obey the Ten Commandments. Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's property. I thought we had shared Judeo-Christian values. The cognitive dissonance is hard to understand.
So with that in mind, Christian Zionists think they have this fear through cognitive dissonance that if they oppose Israel for whatever reason, whether they're committing genocide blatantly in the open or not, they're turning their back on God. And that is deathly fearful to their mind, thinking to themselves, if I curse Israel, if I go against Israel, even if they commit a genocide, I'm gonna go to hell maybe. They're just willful idiots to them. They don't care about Christianity. They don't care about Jesus. They hate Jesus. They don't care about America.
Guys, it is fascinating to watch Christian Zionists supporting Israel. After all, it is not going so well for Christians over in that part of the world. For starters, it appears it is culturally normal for Jewish adults and children to spit on Christians. And even Officer Tatum, a known Israeli mouthpiece, told Benjamin Netanyahu to his face that he got spit on when he visited the Holy Land.
We had only one incident where a small child spit on one of the pastors.
And let's be real, Israeli spitting is the least of Christian concerns over there. The IDF routinely prevents Christians from worshiping, and Israel literally bombed the last remaining Catholic church in Gaza.
Tonight, a look at the damage to Gaza's only Catholic church after it was struck by Israeli artillery,
which resulted in the Pope calling the act outright barbarity. Folks, if you are pissing the Pope off, you have to be f***ing up big time. And the craziest thing to me about this is that American Christian Zionists are actively funding this. Their churches donate tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars a year straight to Israel.
Crazy.
And it makes me wonder, are these people aware that they are raising money for people that appear not to even like them? Blows my mind.
And to your knowledge, what do Jews believe about Jesus?
From what I've heard, he's desecrating and human shit. Yeah, no, they see him as a false messiah, like terrible narratives about Jesus and about his mother, about Mary. They call her a whore, a harlot. You know, they call Jesus that he's, like I said, a bastard, that he's, you know, burning in human excrement. They hate Christians more than they hate Muslims. It is very true that if a Christian were to walk down some areas in Jerusalem or others, that they would be spit on. Like you see, imagine a mother, a father, and children. They tell them, hey, spit, there's a Christian. Not even talking, they just do it together. They just all do it. It's like a common practice.
My name is Stephen Kapos, and I am a child survivor of the Holocaust in Hungary, Budapest. I was in hiding on false papers, etc., which happened after October 44. Soon after, our location was caught up in the fighting between Germany and the invading Soviet troops. So we had double jeopardy. I think that's an important background to understanding Gaza, because I can relate to their experience both of the destruction and the fighting, as well as the insecurities of hiding.
Yes. Are you Jewish?
I am indeed, yes.
Would you consider yourself to be anti-Semitic?
Of course not.
And I don't either, but this is how you're going to be labeled and I'm going to be labeled just for speaking out about Israel. Have you gotten attacks like that before?
Yes, I have.
How ridiculous do you find them?
Well, totally ridiculous. But my family lost 15 people to the death camps.
In your assessment, do Israelis view Palestinians in the same way that Germans viewed the Jews?
Yes, I'm afraid, to some extent, unfortunately.
Before we cover the details of your son's murder, can you say who your son was, what he was up to in Florida?
It's crazy.
My son actually was running the ice cream shop with me, 20-year-old. He graduated high school like 2.5 years ago. I'm kind of an entrepreneur also, like I've run clothing stores, I've done many kind of businesses and stuff like that. I guess he wanted to follow in my footsteps. We found this ice cream shop, so we kind of opened it, and he was running it the whole time. I lived back and forth between the West Bank and the States, and he was living here in Tampa, Florida, like permanently.
Can you describe what happened when your son got killed?
Basically, this summer, his son wanted to go and visit his mother, his brother and sister, and me. We were all in the West Bank. And I said, it's fine, then you go ahead and go. This was back in June. So I told him, since you want to stay here for a little bit longer, I'm basically gonna have to go to the States and take your place. So I left, On July 11th, seeing all these missed calls, and then I seen, you know, the group messaging going like bonkers, and I opened it up, and it's showing that the son of Kamil, is basically missing or injured. I called up my son, my younger son, and he told me that Saif, your son, is unconscious right now, and something happened in the mountains. So I kept going back and forth, and I was like, someone tell me what's going on. No reply whatsoever. So I knew there's something more going on. Then I called my son Saif's phone, but the person that answered was not him. It was one of his friends, and he told me, he's okay, he's okay. At that moment, my son was unconscious. I was like, oh. It just gets me every time, man. It's just...
Damn.
What happened was that Israeli settlers ambushed these young people that were going there to the lands. They were beaten, brutally beaten. So what had happened is Saif was beaten, and he started running, and all the friends kind of dispersed. And on his way down, he basically found this tree. When he reached under this tree, he kind of lost it. His eyes were open, but there was no response from them. He stayed in that state for hours because the ambulance was prevented from the Israeli soldiers to come in. When they finally reached them, because you know the terrain is kind of rough in that area, the ambulance got as close as they can. They put him on the stretcher. My younger son seen this, and he told me, you know, Dad, basically 5 minutes before he got into the ambulance is when he took his last breath. The delay of the Israeli, army delaying to get to him, the paramedics or any medical assistance, you know, it had a big impact in the killing of my son. When they were on their way to the hospital, until finally after about 30 minutes later, he called me up, and you know, he told me, he said, Dad, you know, I don't know how to tell you, but your son was killed, and you know, Saifullah is gone. And I was like, the hardest moment of my life, you know, because you don't expect that ever to happen to your own son, you know, like, and you're always expecting that he's gonna bury you. His whole thing was like to,
damn, bro,
like make me proud, man. Like that was his thing. I want to make my dad proud. I don't want to disappoint him. You know, I was never disappointed, you know, in anything he did, you know. It's hard, Tommy, man. It's just, guess you miss him, man. 20 years old.
The Israeli settlers are a cancer to the fabric of Israeli society. What do you think about that?
Completely untrue.
Do you think that would be anti-Semitic?
No, I think it's a political opinion that some people hold.
Yeah, the former Prime Minister of Israel, actually. That was the quote of the former Prime Minister of Israel, Yitzhak Rabin.
Sure.
So I feel like when I tell you violence that is happening today, you try and take it back to 2,000 years ago. I'm talking about the violence
2,000 years ago.
I'm talking about the violence happening right now in the West Bank, and especially in areas that are Territory A, that should be under full Palestinian authority. They are still being patrolled by IDF, and they are still being overran by Israeli settlers that are armed with American guns.
That's completely incorrect. So Israelis do not enter Area A, because if you enter Area A, it's punishable by Israeli law very heavily. Number one.
Well, I just want to get that quote. Israeli settlers are not entering Area A. That's what you're saying.
They are not. They should not be. It is punishable by Israeli law. That's a big legal problem. You're not allowed to do that.
These lands are our lands. It's under Area A, not under Area B, not under Area C, which is Israeli authority. Now, these are land under Palestinian authority. These are lands that were passed down to us. And these Israeli settlers are going there since April.
What I can tell you is, you're talking about settler violence, right? And the statement that you just made about them being a cancer, I completely disagree with that, and here's why. Because, again, that's a political opinion from the left, and they're entitled to it, and that's fine. I mean,
No,
it's a free country.
your
It's a
former prime minister
democratic
said that.
country.
Your former prime
Israel's a
minister said
democratic
that.
country, and we're allowed to have those conflicting ideas. That's fine. That's part of the democracy. I completely disagree with that as a security professional, as somebody who's been in Judea, Samaria. A lot of our politicians, ironically, have not.
That's another sleight of hand, by the way.
Other areas.
Referring it to as Judea Samaria is a sleight of hand that Israelis are using to not be in the same ballpark about what we're talking about. No one else refers to it as Judea Samaria except for the Israelis.
That's incorrect. I just sat down with the ambassador of the United States, Mike Huckabee, the other day.
The biggest Zionist in the fucking room.
Judea and Samaria. There's no such thing as a settlement. They're communities, they're neighborhoods, they're cities. There's no such thing as an occupation.
Can I finish my statement?
Yes.
Because that's kind of important. I don't know. Have you sat with the ambassador of the United States ever?
Go ahead.
So, being an honored guest at the U.S. Embassy here in Jerusalem, in our meeting, we actually asked him about this very term and his staffers, and they confirmed that yes, that is a term that some of the staffers use and others use West Bank for clarity because people they get confused because they don't understand these terminologies.
So I'm here at the site because I can't get close to the area that my son was killed because I fear for my life. These Israeli settlers are armed and dangerous, and behind me is the area that my son was killed. For 3 hours, having a hard time breathing with no help.
Let's break down some of these details. Number one, can you just describe how many Israeli settlers there were, how old you think they were, and did they hit him? Did they have sticks? Did they have, describe who this group was and what they did to your son?
They have this group called like the Hilltop Gang or Hilltop Clan, and they're basically going around all these like areas in the West Bank and trying to claim or put outposts saying that this is their land, you know. They had clubs that day. There was one of his friends, he just had some major ACL reconstruction. He had his whole knee busted from in, out, everywhere. He's barely walking now. There was another guy, he had his head busted with all this, I think he had like 12 or 13 stitches on his head.
And what role did the IDF play in your son's death?
The IDF played a big role. Them preventing the ambulance to get to him earlier is a big cause, you know, in leading to his murder.
So if the IDF soldiers had simply let an ambulance treat a wounded person that was attacked, good chances are today he'd be alive.
Yes, 100%.
So this would be like if an innocent man was attacked by a mob and the very police that are supposed to protect him kept the ambulance from coming.
Blocked them completely, yes.
Are IDF soldiers supposed to protect the Palestinians?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Why in this case would the
we're not supposed to. We're mainly supposed to protect Israelis.
Right. That's what happens. Yeah.
In carrying out that mission, we are also not allowed to harm others. So in other words, to avoid casualties from anybody, which would include Palestinians.
Would you consider it to be harm to block an ambulance from treating someone for over 3 hours that just got attacked by a mob of settlers?
Yeah, of course, if that's true. Yeah. How come you don't mention the killing of Benjamin Ahmair, a 14-year-old? He was killed in April 12th, 2024, during the war that we've been in. Why don't we mention, I don't know, and you said rocks isn't a big deal. If you recall in our conversation, we kind of discussed a little bit some of the talking points you wanted to cover. Well, just rocks killed Yehuda Shoam in 2001. It killed Jonathan Palmer and his son in 2011. Okay? These were people that just were commuting on the roads. It wasn't settler violence. It wasn't anything that you hear. Oh, and by the way, according to the United Nations reports that you're reading and that you're quoting to me about all the settler violence, this goes under the settler violence.
Why are you doing this for settler violence?
Because he was driving on the road. Well, how is that settler violence? We cry for the one guy. We never talk about the other. There's two people here. In fact, there's many peoples here.
A few things. One, any innocent Israeli that gets killed that is a shame, and we are in agreement. However, the reason one side is more accentuated is because it's a sheer volume problem. When you said 2001, 2011, 2024, there's a lot of gaps. I'm talking about almost on a daily basis. Hold on, you spoke for like 6 minutes straight. I'm gonna talk just a little bit, okay? It's the sheer volume of these things happening. Israel ambassador Mike Huckabee tweeted at Israel, and he's a guy that's as Zionist as you can get.
Yeah.
He even tweeted at Israel that it was a murder and that there needed to be accountability for your son's death.
Yeah, it was an act of terror, he called it. It's been 6 months. There haven't been any leads to the investigation. U.S. Department of State they did no investigation. The FBI didn't do an investigation, even though it's a U.S. citizen. On top of everything, me, my wife, my whole family have a security ban on us by the Israeli authorities. I can't even go through Tel Aviv airport anymore. I can't go to Ben Gurion airport anymore. I can't enter Jerusalem anymore.
Yes, you heard that correctly. Israeli settlers murdered his son, and the Israeli government responded by giving Kamo's family collective punishment. They can no longer fly into Tel Aviv, but rather have to take an extremely long route through another country to get to their land in the West Bank. Furthermore, shortly after his son's murder, he was threatened by the Israeli army that if he did not voluntarily come in for a DNA swab, that they would arrest him and kidnap him in a raid. So illegal squatters killed his son. The Israeli army blocked the ambulance from rescuing him, and yet they still continue to terrorize his family to this day. And this, folks, is textbook Israeli behavior. Where's the accountability, let's say, for the murder of Saif Musalla?
I wasn't there. I know there's a lot of controversy on that particular incident. To my knowledge, he was up to no good. I actually get the actual report of what happened that the media did not tell, and you read the report and you're like, holy crap, it's completely different than what the media portrayed. Because the media wants a story. If it doesn't bleed, it doesn't lead. One of them being that you said that settler violence is overwhelmingly worse against the Palestinians. Yes, because the United Nations are the ones that they collect the information, they pump it to the media, and what they do is they fudge the numbers. They sometimes triple the number of cases where there's settler violence and or altercations with the Israeli security forces. You're looking at it from the way that you're looking at it, but I know the people that are living through it.
Do you agree with Mike Huckabee's assessment that it was a murder of Saif Musalla?
I don't agree with him because, with his statement, if you like, because it's an unprofessional statement if that's what he said.
As if your nightmare couldn't get any worse from your son getting killed, a few months ago, your nephew was brought into Israeli prison on the pretext of throwing a rock.
Yeah. They come to the door, banging on the door. My brother-in-law opened the door before they busted it because they don't give no chances. They're just, when they come in, he's thinking like, what the hell did I do? He's not thinking that they're coming for his 15-year-old son. They take him for allegedly throwing these rocks, take him to an Israeli military police, blindfold him, put him in handcuffs, and then that was the last time that the mother, father, brothers, sisters, anybody had any physical contact or seen him directly until the day that he was released on November 27th, I think it was.
Tell me like the bullet points of what happened to him in that 9.5 months in prison.
He got scabies. He lost 25 pounds. He said they would make cards, playing cards, from napkins. And when the guards found those, they would take it and rip it and throw it away in the garbage. They would pound on them and then, give them a kick here, a kick there. Their food was so scarce, they would give him like a meal that's for one person, but they would have to divide it between 4 to 5 people. When he came out, he was so pale, man. You can just see like, this kid has no sunlight.
He turned 16 while in prison.
He turned 16 while in prison.
So he had been beaten, starved, infested by bugs as a 15-year-old kid.
And the scabies just stayed. Even after he got out in November, he kept on itching.
And this is an American citizen?
This is an American citizen.
Where does he live?
Born U.S. American citizen, from Florida also. This is Saifullah's first cousin. My wife and his mother are sisters.
Generally speaking, how are Palestinians treated in Israeli prisons? It's a known fact that before the 7th of October, things were pretty bad. But after the 7th of October, the Shabak decided to start implementing torture tactics, where they use dogs to rape people. They torture them methodically, they don't give them food, they starve them on purpose, they beat them up methodically. And mind you, this is not just for older people, this is for 14-year-old prisoners or even younger that they have to faceless treatment. It's concentration camps. The Israeli prisons are pretty much concentration camps at this point.
Every day from on top of my house, I can see the Batin area, which is the area that my son was killed. But I can't get there yet. Israeli settlers are still there, armed and dangerous. I want to know a little bit about this night patrol that you guys do every night.
لجنة حراسات سنجل شكلنا هذه لجنة الحراسات من الاعتداءات المستوطنين المستمرة في هذا البلد. طبعا احنا جماعة متطوعين من حالنا طبعا، ولا من اي مؤسسة ولا من اي حدا. تطوع من اهل بلدنا، مختارين من اهل البلد. احنا لجنة مشكلة تقريبا 200 واحد، مقسمين حالنا 4 تقسيمات لحماية أهل سنجل وأطفال سنجل ونساء سنجل وبنات سنجل. طبعا الاعتداءات مستمرة في البلد، كل يوم في اعتداء من المستوطنين. That was the day that this night patrol started, was after my son was brutally murdered and killed by the Israeli settlers on this mountain that I cannot even reach yet. I haven't reached my land yet since that time. So hopefully this will all be solved and some accountability will come to these settlers.
Folks, we just saw a snapshot of what is happening every single day to Palestinians. And we uncovered the murder of an American citizen, the imprisonment of an American citizen. And I think we have to start asking ourselves the question, what are we doing aligned with Israel? What are they doing in the world that we agree with from a humanitarian standpoint? And as I speak right now, we are 4 weeks into a war with Iran that arguably they got us into in the first place. And now we see announcements that Trump might send American troops to fight on the ground, but Israel will not commit to any ground troops. And we have to ask, is this really our greatest ally? And I think we all know the answer. How long are we going to back up what is happening to the people in Gaza, the people in Palestine, now the people in South Lebanon? How far is this going to go? I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want my tax dollars to be a part of it. And quite frankly, I'm sick of this. It's depressing to see this, but one way we can get involved is to help fund organizations like PalShield. So I'm going to donate. I encourage you to as well. It's time for us to wake up as a country and decide, who are we going to be allied with in this world? Who is going to help our international relationships? Because I think the clear answer is, it's not Israel.
That's crazy, bro. That is wow.